Hi, and welcome to my guest today, Kevin Whelan, and he's going to tell us all about the great stuff that he does with SASs and other things as well. And he's also got a book out as well, so we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome, Kevin. Thank you for agreeing to come on and talk to me today.
No problem. I'm looking forward to it. We're definitely in troubled times, right? Both physically, financially, and all other things. So it's always good to get any insight on what you can do.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of people suffering over the next few months as all the different things that come into play start to run out, really, in terms of furlough, in terms of, they've had their bounce back loans already, that kind of stuff. Things are going to be pretty difficult, I think, in the months ahead for lots of businesses and things like that. So it's very difficult times.
Not least the Chancellor's got to find some creative ways to recoup some of this money spent, given it's a Conservative Party pledge not to increase income tax, national insurance, or VAT. So have a guess what they're going to be coming.
Another
CGT and IHT, Steve. And what about entrepreneurs relief again? Maybe another slice at that.
Yeah, no, I think you could be right there, Karen. I think those they've definitely been hinted at in any case, sort of thing. But and as you say, it's the grit of the thing is that where they've made promises, they won't want to go back on them. So it's going to be interesting to see what gets announced in the next few months ahead. So can you tell me about what Wealth Builders does and how you started it and what sort of things you help people with?
Sure. Well, Wealth Builders is a community of like-minded people who really focus on one common objective, really. And the principle is to become financially independent by receiving a steady flow of cash from the ownership of multiple assets. And so the intellectual property behind Wealth Builders is mine. I'm a trained economist, a trained IFA, and a kind of a self-taught wealth person. And we just coined the whole concept of wealth built in 7 different pillars or assets. And the logo is 7 pillars with a foundation and a roof. So anybody could check out wealthbuilders.co.uk and see that. And it's been borne out to the fact, Steve, that 95% of the population, whether you're a business owner or an employee, just don't get financially independent. You know, there's some compromise that happens in their life by accident, usually, or, you know, they get caught up in the trap of trading time for money in a job or trading time for activity in a business. And as a result, they don't build enough assets and they put too much faith in old traditional assets that simply don't work to the same extent they did before. For example, pensions, right? So, you know, historically, people would work 40 years in a company, get a carriage clock on the way out, and they have a decent final salary pension. Well, those days are by and large over with. So, you know, that puts more pressure on that responsibility for individuals. And when there's so much information out there, it's very difficult to find a place where there's holistic information and a step-by-step process to be able to follow, that anybody could become completely financially independent from the careful construction and ownership of these assets in typically 5 to 7 years. Some can do it in 2 or 3, but most 5 to 7. So we're a big community, a thriving one. And I'm just fortunate enough that it was my kind of drive and intellect that created the community. But the community's there for the members. It's not there about me.
That's quite a short time frame, really, 5 to 7 years. I mean, that's because most people, when you mention pensions, their faces drop and they think, I've got to save up for 40 years. And I think they're just going to be buying stock market stuff that's worth nothing and all that kind of stuff. Now, I know you do a lot more inventive things than that because you're heavily involved in encouraging people to invest in properties and things like that, aren't you? So what sort of things do people do?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the 7. So, I mean, in a quick whistle stop, you know, the reason why people don't make it is they rely on what I call the traditional assets, 1, 2, 3, which is having a home to live in, having a pension, which invariably is invested in the stock market, and then investing money in cash or the stock market for retirement or for ISAs and things like that. So there's just an over-reliance on the roller coaster of the stock market. and most people downsize or think they're going to downsize, but don't really get that timing right, or they overestimate the value of that. And they can't add any value. You know, there's very little value you can add. You can't change the stock market by doing something. So the best way to build wealth is to leverage into other assets. So those assets are building a portfolio of property, easy to replicate, very simple strategies, and there's about a dozen of them. Owning a business that has recurring income, creating intellectual property so you can get royalties. I just love the way that sounds. Royalties sounds good. And then joint ventures, which means the skillful collaboration between parties who share different aspects. You know, some people bring money, some people bring intellect, some people bring money, some people bring time. There's always a collaboration. And by not being tied to any one asset, by not pushing one asset over another, we just know there are 7 and only 7 assets in life. And I've wrestled with this for 20 odd years, Steve. I can't find number 8. You know, and if anybody can find me number 8, I'll send them a case of very fine champagne. You know,
They updated.
that standing challenge out there. A lot of people say to me, well, gold is an asset, Kevin. I say, well, it's not really, because the definition of an asset is something you own that isn't you. It puts money in your bank account while you're asleep. You know, you can pass that money on to your family and good causes. You don't have to be there. So in other words, you don't have to show up for the money to show up. And that's the definition of an asset. Mind you, Steve, not an accountant's definition, I'm certain, but a wealth builder's one. And I've only found 7, and I've skillfully built my own wealth in those 7, and we teach all 7 to our clients. So we're not, you know, creatively pushing one thing over another. And what's great is people choose their own pathway. And by discovering and by being open-minded to all 7, then they create diversification. Not just diversification in the stock market, but if you've got money coming from property, from your business, from intellectual property, joint ventures, stock market as well, then you're creating certainty. And I think in a time like we've just seen, the unprecedented times, which creates massive uncertainty, there's never been a better time to take control, learn what to do, and create your own certainty. And 5 to 7 years, most people can do it. You need a bit of leverage. You need to have some time. Most people don't want to give that time. But if they won't give it, they will never make it. They'll just have to rely on the stock market, which is a much slower journey. And that's why it takes 30 to 40 years, because, you know, you've got to get rid of all the booms and bumps, and then that kind of long-term 5-6% gross stock market can do it in 30, 35 years. But if you want to do it in a fifth of that time, you need to be proactive. You need to get involved. And that's what we teach.
Yeah, and that makes a difference in so many ways. That makes a difference in so many people's businesses as well. If they some people just don't really put the effort in, and if you don't put the effort in, then you won't get the results. It's it's the same in most things in life, really, I think.
Yeah.
Now you've got a book that's just come out, which I'll show everybody what that's about. Let's have a look. So, Wealth in the Second Wave. What's the and I've got a special link which you can download it from our website. There's a link to where the page on our website is that's got it on there. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your about the book and what it talks about.
Yeah, well, I would say probably, Steve, calling it a book is probably slightly punching above its weight. I think it's a guide, and essentially, I mean, I've got 3 books that I've written, which I'll just mention because they're all available for free, you know, to anybody who connects to me. I'd just love to give free stuff because I think it helps people make distinctions and find different ways of thinking, and that's great. So I'll mention those later. But this particular guide, and thanks for highlighting it, is Wealth in the Second Wave. In other words, you know, we can see the kind of the vaccine light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still so much uncertainty. And what I'm seeing people doing, Steve, out there is they're sitting on their hands. They're thinking, well, I'll wait for the vaccine. You know, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for something to do. And I'm saying, well, look, there are so many things you could do, so many opportunities. So in the book, or in the guide, really, it's almost like a collection of contributions and podcasts. So there's a link to different books and there's a link to podcasts that people can tune into, which touches on all of those 7 assets. So there's a contribution about how you can make value from the home and the space around you. There'll be somebody talking, one of my own team, talking about how you can gain complete control over your pension and dramatically turn around that value in terms of the return on investment, then the return on your pension, and then the return on the legacy for the children and people you leave behind. And that's a really powerful lesson. There's something in there if you're interested in the stock market, and technology has driven the cost of running stock market investments almost to bare minimums, but still people languish, paying hefty fees to the financial services institutions, really, and the intermediaries, where probably in many cases they don't need to do so unless they really value the guidance and the added value that somebody's bringing. But usually that's not the case. And then business, how you create recurring income in your business, or instead of creating the business, there are many people now, Steve, business owners, and there's lots of evidence to show that COVID is the straw that's breaking their back. It's almost like they're distressed people, not distressed businesses. And they're looking for an exit for their business, but they don't know where to find the exit. They're losing money on their business, or they're earning less than they were before. They're getting older, and they're just thinking, how the heck do I solve this problem? So there's many opportunities to help solve a problem for a business owner and say, hey, I can help you get a capital value from this, or how you could gain some value from the business you've created. You're just too tired to run it now. And I call it, they're just not getting fair value for their blood, sweat, and years. And and they want to do something different. So there's something on that. There's also something about intellectual property and how you can create value from what you're outstanding at, and how you could create, package, repurpose your knowledge in a way that other people would value right now. And then collaborations of all kinds. What I'm seeing, which is brilliant in our community, is the way people work together. They don't see themselves being on their own. They don't see the loneliness of the long distance business owner, or the employee. They just see connections and collaborations all over the place. And it all sounds esoteric, but it's genuinely not the case. There are so many people working together with different ways of looking at things and different ways of solving things, and they come together and they do a better job. And I think it's very powerful. So that's just all I'm encouraging people to do, is if they read it, find one thing you could take action on before we wait for the end. In other words, take some action. Don't just sit on your hands and wait for the vaccine to clear us all of this terrible illness, and then say, well, now what do I do? Do something while you can, and there's always something you can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as you say, there is a big community of people out there that can help with all kinds of stuff. I mean, we both know about progressive property, and you've got your own community with wealth builders as well. So people don't need to think that not having all of the skills is necessarily a barrier to taking action. There are people out there that can help you in all different areas, depending on what you need help with. And most people are prepared to help, really, in terms of being collaborative and stuff like that. There are lots of ways to do things.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Steve. I mean, obviously, I know you're a collaborative guy because, you've been helpful to me in the past and done so just out of the goodness of your heart, and I appreciate that. But you see, when I think most people in a corporate environment, or if they get into business on their own, they see life as a zero-sum game. It's almost like in order for me to win, you've got to lose. It's a bit like being back at school, when collaborating was cheating. If you do something with somebody else, somehow it's like having your homework like this, and it's that's not the way the real world is, and in all sorts of communities, and there are many communities out there. I just find that if you can connect to a community with shared values, if you can resonate with the message of that community, and whoever you choose, then there's value in it. And I found people in the wealth builder community, sure, And we've also got a thriving community around the concept of the SaaS, which I hope you'll ask me some questions.
Yeah.
We got a community called the SaaS Alliance. Can you believe there's a community of nearly 4,000 people getting
Wow.
excited about what the hell they're doing with their pensions? You know, turning their pensions into powerful things that are future looking, rather than being a reflection of the past. And I'm excited about that. And those communities help each other, not for profit, but because they come from a place of shared values. And I know you and I share values, which is why we collaborate and we connect. And you know, and I would say there are communities out there. Just don't sit on your hands. Go look for them. You know, so Progressive
Yeah.
is one, but Wealth Builders is another, SaaS Alliance is another. But there are probably dozens of communities, and I'm sure people could maybe tell you a bit more about some of them that we could promote in our group and say, hey, this
Yeah.
is a great
I'm
community.
sure. Sure. And yeah, also with your pensions, I know you can train people to be trustees as well, can't you? You have courses for that, I think, don't you?
Well,
Trustees.
yeah, I mean, you don't need a course to be a trustee, but I mean, let's debunk the language. I mean, look, a pension is like a business. You know, in a business, you've got a director, and then the business owner directs the profit, you know, is seeking activities on which to make that profit, and they're bringing their own style, their own personality, and their own employees to bear. And a SaaS pension, a small self-administered scheme, is the technical term, wouldn't win any prize for marketing, but it's just a revenue title for it. It's a business in a box. It says you now become the legal owner of your pension, and technically you don't need to be a professional to do it. Now, we believe you should have some information, otherwise you could easily make mistakes. It's a very, very sophisticated, powerful tool, and like any sophisticated, powerful vehicle or tool, you need a little bit of instruction before you use it, and we do that. So we teach people how to become a trustee, that they can drive their own pension to fulfill what they want. So if they want to invest in property, they can. If they want to invest in their business, they can. If they want to create IP, they can. If they want to collaborate, they can. If they want to invest in the stock market, they can. But the fees are fixed because the work is being done by the business owner. So the fees are just administration fees, less than a bookkeeper would charge, you know, to do books on a company.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of myths. There's a lot of debunking of those myths, and we provide lots of educational videos and instruction to help people kind of work this out and discover SaaS, and that it's not a high risk thing. It's as risky as you are. And Warren Buffett said it best: is risk is when you don't know what you are doing. Well, you de-risk things by actually becoming better at doing things, and the more you do it, the more your competence builds, the more your ROIs build, and the bigger your pension, the stronger you feel. And that's what we find in our community of SaaS trustees. They love doing it, and you know, my own clients are writing books about that. So one of them is in the guide, a guy called Mark Stokes, who's written a book on SaaS. I didn't even write it. He was so impressed with what he did. So I think it took 25 years to build a corporate pension. I basically doubled it in as many months. And that's because he used it in property development. Now, I'm not saying everybody should be a property developer, definitely not. But he chose that path. So then why not take the pension and do that instead of leaving it doing what it was doing on the stock market, you know, paying lots of profits and fees to the financial services industry instead of putting the money where it belongs, which is in the bank account of the owners of the pension, people like you and people like me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've certainly. I've got SASs, and I also have originally started off having some SIP pensions, and investing in property has been a big growth thing for me. And back in the days when I first started, you could borrow 75% of the value of the property, but you can't do that anymore. It's now 50% of the value of the fund.
Yeah, 50%.
But the over the, because I started quite a number of years ago, a lot of those mortgages are all repaid. So now I have property assets that I own, which are generating money for my pension. So even if you're not into development, which well, many of my clients are as well, but then you can even take a reasonably passive position by investing in commercial property. Now, I know some people probably think that's a bit of a risk at the moment because they watch the telly and they see businesses like Arcadia going bust and things like that. But these things will come around and those buildings will be used for something. And if they won't, then they'll be used for repurposed for residential in some way.
Well, exactly, Steve. I mean, couldn't have said it better. I mean, look, the retail market, the high street market has been devastated, but the opportunity will flow through from commercial to residential conversions, and many of our clients are being geared up for that. In fact, Susie Carter, who's one of the contributors in the guide, The Wealth and Second Wave, talks just about that and how her experience as a very seasoned commercial property negotiator, saying, I'm getting all my money in cash. You know, I'm seeing big opportunities, and it's not to take advantage of other people's weaknesses. It's just to say, look, property prices in that area are going to decrease, and as a result, there'll be opportunities to repurpose those properties and create value, whether it's retail or there's still going to be some strong covenants, some strong commercial properties. It's just understanding that instead of just listening to the news and think everything's doom and gloom, actually there are little pockets of opportunity everywhere, and it's up to you as an individual to choose, you know, where you choose to respond. And I think that's definitely a growth area. But just figure this as well, you know, with pensions still having £1 million worth of tax-free status, there's nothing wrong with having a plan to build £1 million pension. I mean,
No.
we talk about Rishi Sunak's going to have to come at IHT and CGT. Well, the SAS pension is free of both of those things. So you know, you do yourself a service by taking time to understand some things that maybe you haven't heard of yet. And you know, feel free to connect with me. We've got guides and videos, however you like, and audios from our podcast. However people like to consume information, you know, we can help them get it so they can just learn about things. And the time, we've all got more time than we ever had before. So I'd say take the time to learn something, something that interests you.
Yeah, no, yeah, there are so many opportunities out there that people miss on. They get turned off by the idea of pensions, and really they should be seeing it as a great opportunity to use money that's been locked up in an area where they can now invest it. But equally, it's tax-free going in, it's tax-free when it's in there, and when you take it out, you get 25% tax-free, and you can pass it on IHT-free. I mean, there are so many reasons why you should be looking at it very carefully. So
absolutely right. So I'd encourage anybody to just look again. I mean, there's a kind of a disconnection in the UK between people and their pensions. It's a bit of a weird one, and I guess the language is a bit sort of dark and impenetrable at times. It doesn't sound very sexy, and people kind of consign it to do not disturb till 65 almost. When in reality, for many, it's a big bank account.
yeah,
Just a bank account. And if you have it and you recognize it as a bank account, and our average SaaS client's got 400 grand, give or take, when they start, and that's a big bank account. And then they realize they can use that money as if they were a bank and make profit like a bank by buying property or lending money or investing in businesses. You know, they can do all those things. And I think it's kind of shocking still to me. It's the best kept secret out there. And even the traditional IFAs, you know, don't talk about it. And most accountants, Steve, don't really know about SaaS. I've had accountants say to clients that I've spoken to, "Oh no, that SaaS is much too risky," when actually it's just the same as the SIP in structure in terms of legalities. But you can combine your money with others. You can drive your costs down because it's fixed fees instead of funds under management fees. So for the most part, SaaSes are cheaper, more flexible. They can accommodate the next generation. You can have up to 11 people in it, which is a really big family. But you know, whether you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're still pooling that money. And anyway, I think I'm still excited about, you know, what SaaSes can do, and encourage anybody to just do have a little look and see if the whole idea is worth exploring a bit further.
Okay, well, that's fantastic, Kevin. Thank you thank you very much for coming on to speak to me today.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to bring it to a close there, and really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. Thanks very much.
Okay, nice to talk to you, and thanks for the invitation, Steve.
That's okay. Anytime, Kevin. Thanks.